Hello, I'm Raina Morgan with iHealthTube, talking with Dr. Cheryl Selman about women's health. And one of the things we want to talk about is the role of estrogen in fat.
The trend for most women, premenopausal and menopausal women, is to be estrogen dominant, to have excess amounts of estrogen. Now, something we need to know about estrogen. Estrogen is a hormone that turns food into fat. Estrogen stimulates the growth of cells. It proliferates cell growth. Estrogen is the primary hormone that really starts developing secondary sex characteristics in women. So we start developing our breasts. We, get curvy. That's estrogen. And part of that effect is because it's able to stimulate cell growth and laying down lots of cells. So what happens when we have excess estrogen? We are putting on fat, because not only does estrogen proliferate the growth of estrogen-sensitive cells around the body, but also the more we have fat on our bodies, the more overweight we become, the more fat cells actually themselves produce estrogen. So when we are out of balance and we're not ovulating, which is happening more and more to women, they are not ovulating every month due to poor diet, stress, toxins. You have a whole month where you are not producing progesterone, which is produced when you ovulate. When you must ovulate to produce progesterone in premenopausal women. The sac that the egg has been held in turns into an endocrine gland that makes progesterone. So that's how we make progesterone up until menopause. And if we're not ovulating, then we have a whole month where estrogen is circulating and not being balanced by progesterone. Progesterone is the hormone that turns fat into energy.
Oh, really?
Yes. So estrogen turns, turns food into fat, proliferates cell growth, and progesterone is like the brake that stops that process from going on and on and on. So when you are estrogen dominant, you will tend to put on more weight, because that's the message your body's getting from too much estrogen. And then the more weight you put on, or the weight that you already have, those fat cells are also producing estrogen. So this contributes to the problem. And when you have lots of estrogen, one other thing happens. Estrogen blocks the absorption or the stimulation from thyroid hormones to your thyroid.
Okay.
So it's creating a sluggish metabolism, a more hypothyroid condition. The estrogen interferes with the uptake of that thyroid hormone. Your thyroid can't function properly, and when you have a thyroid condition and your metabolism slows down, you start putting on weight. So all of this imbalance all works together to move us more and more to putting on weight, which happens as we get older.
So the excess estrogen actually turns the food into fat.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, yes.
And we're getting excess estrogen. We actually produce it ourselves.
Yes. We call this condition estrogen dominance. So we tend to be hormonally out of balance, weighing more heavily on the estrogen side. Progesterone either is not being made adequately, or we have so much estrogen that we're either exposed to through many of the chemicals that are hormone mimics, estrogen mimics, or we are taking hormones in the form of birth control pills or HRT. Very often women who take HRT start piling on the weight, and that's right, because they're getting way too much estrogen, and which they probably didn't even need in the first place, by the way. And then if we have a sluggish liver, which should properly process and metabolize estrogen, if it can't do that, it actually metabolizes estrogen into a stronger form of estrogen, which we reabsorb. So there are different ways that we are actually creating more and more estrogen and an estrogenic effect in our bodies these days.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Selman.
You're welcome.